seconds. That's all it took. No explosion, no warning. No second chance. In a silent laboratory, one tiny moment changed American history forever. What happened was hidden for years, and most people still don't know the truth. This isn't a story of fear. It's a story of how close humanity came without even realizing it. 4 milliseconds that changed everything. 4 milliseconds. A moment so brief that it barely exists in human awareness. Yet in American history, this fraction of time quietly became unforgettable. Not because of noise or chaos, but because of what it revealed about power, technology, and responsibility. In the mid-20th century, the United States stood at the center of rapid scientific progress. The Cold War era pushed nations to race toward innovation at unprecedented speed. Science was no longer just about discovery, it became a tool of national security. Laboratories became strategic spaces, and calculations carried consequences far beyond the walls in which they were made. New technologies promised safety, strength, and control in a world shaped by fear of the unknown. Nuclear science, in particular, was seen as the ultimate symbol of human mastery over nature. It offered energy, defense, and dominance, but demanded absolute precision. Laboratories handling such forces were places of discipline and intense focus, where every movement followed strict procedures and every decision was reviewed with care. Scientists and engineers trusted numbers, formulas, and systems that had been tested repeatedly. They believed that human intelligence, combined with advanced machines, could keep even the most dangerous forces under control. However, history reminds us that complex systems do not forgive even the smallest oversight. When perfection becomes a requirement, any deviation, no matter how brief, can create irreversible consequences. This story does not begin with alarms or visible destruction. It begins quietly, with routine work, standard procedures, and confidence in established methods. The environment was calm, almost ordinary, which makes the outcome even more haunting. In just 4 milliseconds, time moved faster than human reaction, faster than correction, faster than warning. That tiny window exposed a truth that still matters today. Technology can amplify human ability, but it can also magnify human limits. When systems operate at extreme speeds, there is no room for hesitation or error. Decisions made earlier, assumptions accepted as safe, and safeguards believed to be sufficient all converge in a single instant. This moment was not the result of recklessness, but of trust in design and process. It shows how responsibility in leadership and science extends beyond intention to outcome. The people involved did not expect disaster, yet history recorded the event as a turning point. Not because it caused widespread destruction, but because it revealed how thin the line truly is between control and catastrophe. 4 milliseconds became a lesson written into American scientific history, reminding future generations that progress without humility carries hidden risks. This section invites us to look beyond fear and spectacle, and instead understand the deeper message. When humanity works with forces that move faster than thought, ethical responsibility, rigorous oversight, and respect for limitations are not optional. They are essential. This is why that single fraction of a second still matters, because it teaches us that the most powerful dangers are often silent, brief, and invisible until it is too late. Inside the world of Cold War science, to understand how 4 milliseconds could carry such weight, we must step inside the world that existed long before that moment. During the Cold War, the United States invested heavily in scientific research, laboratories, and advanced technology. This was an era shaped by tension and competition, where knowledge itself became a form of power. Scientists were not only researchers, they were guardians of national security. Working behind guarded doors, they dealt with complex systems that required discipline, precision, and constant awareness. Every experiment followed carefully written procedures, because even a small miscalculation could lead to serious consequences. The environment inside these facilities was calm, orderly, and controlled on the surface, but underneath lay forces that demanded absolute respect. Nuclear science was treated with both confidence and caution. It was seen as a symbol of progress, capable of providing energy and deterrence, yet it was also understood to be unforgiving. Engineers relied on layered safety systems, checks, and redundancies, believing that these measures could prevent accidents. This belief was not careless. It was built on years of successful operation and testing. However, complex systems have a unique weakness. They depend on humans to interpret data, follow rules, and respond correctly under pressure. In this world, time was often measured in milliseconds, not minutes. Decisions had to be precise and reactions had to be immediate. Training emphasized routine because routine reduces mistakes. Yet routine can also create familiarity, and familiarity can sometimes hide risk. The people working in these laboratories were highly skilled professionals. They trusted their instruments, calculations, and experience. What they could not fully control was how quickly events could unfold when multiple factors aligned. Nuclear environments do not allow for hesitation. When something moves faster than human awareness, the margin for correction disappears. This section is not about blame or fear. It is about understanding the mindset of an era where progress moved faster than reflection. Science advanced rapidly because the world demanded answers, solutions, and protection. But the faster technology moved, the thinner the margin became between success and failure. The Cold War laboratory was a place where silence mattered, where focus was absolute, and where even a brief lapse could carry meaning far beyond the room. This context helps explain why 4 milliseconds mattered so deeply. They were not just a technical detail, but a reflection of a system operating at the edge of human capability. By understanding this environment, we begin to see how responsibility in science is not only about innovation, but about recognizing limits. The lesson of this era is clear. When technology accelerates faster than human reaction, time itself becomes a risk. This realization sets the stage for what followed, and why the accident became a lasting reminder of the cost of working at the frontier of power, when precision meets human limitation. As technology advanced, the systems designed to control nuclear processes became more complex and more sensitive. Precision was not just important, it was everything. Every action depended on exact timing, exact measurements, and exact responses. These systems were built to function perfectly under normal conditions, but perfection leaves little room for humanity. Humans are not machines. They rely on perception, judgment, and experience, all of which take time. In high-risk environments, time becomes the most valuable and dangerous factor. Engineers understood this risk and designed safeguards meant to slow reactions down, create buffers, and provide warnings. Yet no system can fully escape the reality that humans must ultimately interact with it. This is where limitation quietly enters the story. The accident did not begin with recklessness or ignorance. It began within a framework that was considered safe, controlled, and well understood. Procedures were followed, steps were known, and confidence was high. But complex systems can behave unpredictably when multiple small factors align at once. In such moments, events can move faster than training prepares anyone for. 4 milliseconds is not enough time for a human mind to register danger, let alone respond to it. That gap between machine speed and human awareness is where vulnerability lives. This section is not about assigning fault. It is about recognizing a fundamental truth of modern technology. As systems become faster and more powerful, they can outpace the people who operate them. The individuals involved were highly trained professionals working within accepted standards. Yet standards are based on assumptions, and assumptions can fail when reality behaves differently than expected. This incident revealed how even well-designed safeguards can be overwhelmed by speed. The lesson was not that people failed, but that the system demanded more than any human could reasonably give. This realization forced scientists and policymakers to rethink how much responsibility can safely rest on human reaction alone. It also raised ethical questions about how far technology should be pushed without equivalent advances in safety design. When milliseconds matter, there is no space for second chances. This is why the event became so significant. It showed that progress without restraint can create situations where control is more fragile than it appears. The intersection of precision and human limitation is where risk becomes unavoidable. This understanding would later influence changes in safety culture, training methods, and system design. 4 milliseconds became a symbol of the moment when humanity was reminded that intelligence does not eliminate vulnerability. It only shifts where vulnerability appears. By examining this section, we see that the true danger was not technology itself, but the assumption that humans could always keep pace with it. This insight remains relevant today, as modern systems continue to move faster than ever before. Lessons written into policy and practice. After the accident, the impact was not measured only in reports or internal reviews. It quietly reshaped how safety, policy, and responsibility were understood at the highest levels. The event forced leaders, scientists, and institutions to pause and reflect on assumptions that had long gone unquestioned. For years, confidence in systems and procedures had grown alongside technological success. This moment revealed that confidence alone was not enough. It highlighted the need for humility when working with forces that move faster than human thought. In response, conversations began to shift away from blame and toward learning. The focus turned to understanding how design choices, training methods, and organizational culture could be improved. Safety was no longer viewed as a checklist, but as a living process that required constant reassessment. Policies were reviewed with a new awareness that rare events still matter, especially when their consequences are irreversible. This section of the story shows how a single incident can influence generations of decision-making. Within scientific communities, the accident encouraged deeper discussions about redundancy, automation, and the balance between human control and machine response. Engineers began asking not only whether a system could function, but how it might fail and how quickly those failures could unfold. This mindset led to changes that prioritized early detection, slower reaction chains, and clearer communication channels. Beyond laboratories, the lessons reached policymakers who recognized that technological power carries moral responsibility. They understood that protecting people requires more than innovation. It requires restraint and foresight. The incident became a reference point in training programs used to remind new generations that experience does not eliminate risk. It reinforced the idea that safety culture must be built into every level of an organization, from design to daily operation. This was not about fear, but about respect for complexity. The lesson extended beyond nuclear science into other high-speed fields, where similar risks existed but were often underestimated. By acknowledging limitations openly, institutions strengthened their ability to adapt and respond. This section matters because it shows how history can guide progress. 4 milliseconds may seem insignificant, but the response to that moment reshaped standards and expectations. It proved that learning from near-invisible events is just as important as learning from dramatic failures. The legacy of this incident lives on in quieter ways, in procedures that slow things down, in safeguards that assume imperfection, and in leaders who recognize that responsibility grows with power. Understanding this transformation helps us see how progress becomes sustainable only when it is paired with accountability. This lesson remains relevant in any era where technology moves faster than the people who depend on it. Why 4 milliseconds still matter? Today, decades have passed since that brief moment, yet the meaning of 4 milliseconds has not faded with time. Instead, it has grown more relevant as technology continues to accelerate in every field. This story is not locked in the past. It speaks directly to the present and the future, because the same forces that shaped that moment still exist today. Modern systems operate faster, process more data, and rely on automation more than ever before. The lesson remains clear. When speed increases, the margin for human correction shrinks. This section brings the story full circle, showing why this incident is remembered not as a failure, but as a warning and a guide. It reminds us that progress without reflection can quietly build risk beneath success. The people who study this moment today do not do so out of fear. They do it to understand how responsibility must evolve alongside innovation. The accident demonstrated that technology does not act alone. It reflects the values, assumptions, and limits of those who design and manage it. As industries grow more complex, the importance of ethical boundaries becomes stronger, not weaker. This lesson extends beyond science into leadership, governance, and decision-making at every level. 4 milliseconds symbolize the instant when control slipped beyond reach, not because of intent, but because of scale and speed. That symbol continues to influence how experts think about safety margins, oversight, and transparency. It encourages organizations to design systems that assume imperfection rather than deny it. This mindset shift is one of the most important outcomes of the story. It teaches that resilience comes not from confidence alone, but from preparation for the unexpected. In a world increasingly shaped by algorithms, automation, and artificial intelligence, this lesson carries new weight. The same questions remain. How fast is too fast? How much control should humans retain? Where should responsibility lie when systems act in fractions of a second? This story does not offer simple answers, but it offers clarity. It shows that acknowledging limits is not weakness, it is wisdom. The final message of this section is one of balance. Progress is essential, but so is caution. Power can protect, but only when guided by restraint. 4 milliseconds remind us that history is often shaped not by long speeches or dramatic moments, but by silent instants that reveal the truth beneath our assumptions. As long as technology continues to outpace human awareness, this lesson will remain relevant. This is why the story endures, because it is not just about what happened, but about what must be remembered. This final section closes the narrative with a reminder that responsibility does not end with innovation. It begins there,